Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building. You good? We got a special guest in the building.
That's
Family,
right.
Killer Mike. What's up, brother?
What's up? How you doing, brother? You good?
Doing some big things out there, man.
my brother-
we talk about it all the time. We talk about these financial institutions. We talk about how difficult it is to get money. We talk about how, they don't look at us the same way they look at white people. So you decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just open up my own bank.
No, online black-owned bank.
Online black-owned bank. I love it.
So I've been banking black for as long as I've been banking. I have several different bank accounts, but I've never gotten rid of my black bank account because my grandparents thought that was important. Because everywhere isn't like Atlanta, and it's difficult to get black banking in some parts of the country. We know that 64% of people are bound banking on their phone and on their computer. So some actually brilliant people, and asked to be a part of it, but some brilliant people put together an online banking. And what you're able to do is bank right from your phone, fully banking. What you're able to do is go to a place and get like automobiles, home loans, and it's black folk, man. To be honest, it's just we are protesting things that are happening bad, but we have to start putting money into things that are going to help grow us. And this is going to do that. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm proud pushing it along,
Do we have young people on the board on the bank as well? Because a lot of times, with some of the other banks, it was so much to get around, and the rates weren't as competitive, and it was a lot difficult to get certain loans. I do a lot in real estate. So are there younger people on the board that understands what's going on in today's market?
Yeah, there's after they get people going, one of their targets is to get into businesses that normally would not be considered by the larger banks. It's more difficult for me, say, for instance, to get a barbershop, because when you look at basically the majority of Americans are going once a month, every 2 months, because they're non-black. But if you look at one that's owned by black people, they know not only are blacks coming on a weekly basis, that we have the ability to, like we doing, we sell shoes, we sell accessories, we do T-shirts. So we're a retail center masquerading as a barbershop. No other bank that's not black is going to understand that from the same way, because they don't understand it going weekly. So yes, this does. It has people as young as Bo Young, Andrew Young's son, who's one of the co-founders, a little older than me. I'm involved with it and want to see it grow. Andrew Young, former mayor and ambassador and Dr. King associate. So it's safe, it's stable, and I'm looking forward. In capitalism, having more competition creates a better place for customers. If you want to look 4 years ago when we did a black banking challenge and we took people to a black bank in the physical, all of a sudden we saw Wells Fargo come out with a $60 million loan program for blacks, not for minorities, not for people who were other than, not one group, specifically for black people. So the more competition we have that helps us, or people that look like us, the better the whole market is going to get. So I say we should welcome this in. People should pivot toward this bank, at least have one or more of your accounts with this bank, and start to see that stuff evens out. You can be able to go to a loan. They're going to understand your car loan better, your under house loan better. And bigger than that, they're going to understand your business loans better.
Absolutely.
Well, how does the online bank work, Mike?
Well, how does online bank work? It works 65% are already banking online. So I'm used to going in the bank because I want to see people. My 13-year-old daughter already banks online straight from her phone, So essentially the same way your PayPals and things of that work without such heavy fines, you're going to be able to use with this bank. Greenwood, go to www.greenwood.com. You guys are going to enjoy it. So I'm asking people to give it a try. You start off as low as you want, but as it works better for you, make sure you open up, you start to pivot, because it looks like after this pandemic and things of that nature, people are going to start pivoting more toward money over their phone versus passing out sheets of paper as well.
So Greenwood, was that named after Tulsa?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The neighborhood, a lot of times the way we hear our news disempowers us. So when you hear about the Tulsa, Oklahoma burning, all you hear is we've been victims. And that's absolutely true. But the grand evil, beyond that evil moment in which our town was burnt down, people were killed and forced out, the ultimate evil is they took away the opportunity we had created for ourselves. Black people that were going west and founded the neighborhood of Greenwood and Tulsa, they had founded their own teaching, theaters, hospitals. They had found their own residents. They had found their own way to turn a dollar 36 times in that community. A dollar only stays in our community 6 hours today. And if you look at the results around us, we kind of just take whatever scraps fall off the table. We think that it's time we have our own table with our own chairs, and we have our own house and our own financial institution.
Now, what about rates? You know, because most people say, well, are the rates competitive, or are they just competitive with the other banks and getting loans and things like that?
Yeah, the rates will be competitive. I won't talk details now because we have a banker, and I can send him back to make sure you talk the details. His brother came from one of the largest banks. He had worked at several of them. And he personally, what the funniest thing he said was when the brother said that he couldn't find black people, the guy from Wells Fargo, he was like, you aren't looking because I know us and we're here. So we've got many of the brothers that came from the other bigger banks here to help grow this.
Great.
What's the benefit of people banking with like a newly established black-owned bank rather than a major corporation?
Well, I say you should always have more than one bank account, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's anything wrong with spreading it around. So I have one with one of the major banks, and I have about 3 with different black banks. It's important because competition is important in capitalism. In capitalism, the more competition you have, usually the better it is for the customers. And you have regional banks that are non-black that are doing well in their particular region. And from a cultural standpoint, I just think it's black people who may be opening businesses that other people don't understand. Your loan consideration is going to be different here. I think for black people who are already starting to work off their phone, over 65% are using the phone as their banking source now. I think that there's a grand opportunity here, and we don't have to wait. So technologically, Greenwood is ready, where a lot of black banks are still trying to catch up from a regional perspective. They've come in the game ready and prepared.
Now, so there's not going to be an actual physical bank at all. This is all online. So if I want to get my ATM card or my checks, I have to wait in the mail. I can't get nothing now. It's all online.
To my understanding, but I can't say they won't be a brick and mortar. That's something I'd like to see too. But that's something that's still in the planning stages. But right now, again, like I said, my kids don't go to the regular bank. It's just not a need for them. Mm-hmm. And, so I think that as old as we are, at some point, we're going to see less physical banks, period, and more people doing their banking right from their phone. So this bank happens to be ahead of the curve. But I would encourage people to not only have one account, to at least have an account and a backup account as well. So whether this is your primary or backup, let's make sure we're representing with this bank.
You know, Robert Smith has a 2% plan where he wants to see Fortune 500 companies donate 2% of their net income into black-owned banks. So I want you to answer, how can black banking and black generational wealth, how do they complement each other?
Well, the first and biggest form of generational wealth, and us being Southerners, we understand this, and Envy being in the real estate business, the first piece of wealth you can have as a person who's come up out of middle class or regular poverty even is home ownership. Mm-hmm. The best thing you can do for the next generation is to buy and own a piece of land. And what black banks give you the opportunity to do is get the home ownership that you deserve by getting a loan with fair rates that you deserve. And then you have something to have equity to borrow against. You have something to leave those that are coming after you. And that's what our grandparents and things have. Now we not only need one to give us that cornerstone, that home loan that begins wealth, we need one that helps build us or understands the type of businesses we're open as well. And I would think that Greenwood is that. So I support Mr. Smith in that greatly. That there's many black people in finance that have done well. And I'm looking forward to working with them to growing our financial education in our community and making sure that black people can do things like own a home and get home loans, because as turbulent time comes, a lot of time home ownership is the thing that saves families, the cornerstone of them not descending into poverty.
I agree with you, but then you'll hear people say, you can't home ownership your way out of poverty, Mike.
Well, I hear people and I see people give us some very dismal statistics, but being from the South, I got to be honest with you guys. I have to look at beyond the statistics and at people in the South. My great-grandparents were sharecroppers. In their lifetime, they got 33-acre farm in Tuskegee. That farm is still in our family today. And although we don't farm on it, a timber company pays us to grow there. So every January, me and my cousins and stuff get money because our great-grandparents made that sacrifice. So I want people to understand that right now, not only you're taking care of yourself by getting a home loan, you're taking care of the future by having something to leave for them and strengthening the financial institution that's going to help.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I tell people that all the time. I mean, it might not be something where you see right now, but your family will. Like, I have a couple of properties that I own that I don't necessarily think it'll make me a fortune of money off of it. But I know when I pass away one day, my 5 kids will never have to work because of those properties, you know what I mean? And they will make sure that the family's stable. And we got to continue to do that and continue to teach each other how to do it. And I think what you're doing right now with this bank is brilliant, because one of the hardest things for me coming up was finding lenders, finding people to lend me the money. That was the most difficult thing.
Yeah, I want to appreciate you and Caesar, too. I know a lot of times it's entertaining when me and you fuss and fight and talk smack and camera each other, people like that. But I want people to know that Envy and I, first of all, just like Charlamagne and I, we're friends. We're associates. I love this brother just like I love Charlamagne. And off camera, Envy and I are always talking real estate. Caesar is one of his partners, and Caesar's constantly keeping me in contact, and we're going to do business. We've done some cool stuff together. So I want to encourage people that beyond the entertainment aspect of it, let's make sure that we're doing things to cooperate to try to help one another. Because Envy doesn't want to see me sing and dance the rest of my life because I have to. He'd like to see me independently wealthy and being able to take care of my kids so I can choose how much singing and dancing I want to do. So I wanted to take time to appreciate you, Envy, for that.
Thank you, brother.
As much as people love to see us go back and forth, they need to know that we work in cooperation, and you're trying your very best to make sure that artists in particular are doing well. So I want to thank you and Caesar, Danny, who's the builder, and all those guys. I've learned a lot from your circle. I appreciate you.
I like when y'all fuss. I like to see the light-skinned, dark-skinned back and forth. I love it. I don't know what y'all talking about. I learned from that,
too. Hey, what's crazy, though, my dad could be my dad light skin with wavy hair, man. So I'm popping out defending my mama's side of the color for
that. How do you anticipate making it easier to access loans for Black people with Greenwood?
Well, when you look at the guys at the top that like Ryan Glover, when you look at guys like Paul Judge, Paul made a fortune in tech. Ryan comes out directly out of music and television. So Ryan was one of the founders and operators of Noontime Music. And then he went on to found Bounce TV and sell Bounce TV. So he's been successful at the endeavors he's done. And he understands the difficulty of Black biz and minority biz in particular getting funding. So from the ground up, you have a person or the president or founder of this bank that has literally coming out the same ranks that people are going to be coming from looking for home ownership. But before we get to business ownership, before we get to business, let's look at this. First steps, let's get some deposits in and let's grow. Second step is let's get some home loans and auto loans going. And then the next step, let's look at businesses that are successful in the community and need an injection of capital to grow. Perfect example, although they didn't put the capital behind this business, is a business called, it's owned by Pinky. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But it's a vegetarian restaurant here.
Oh, Slutty Vegan.
Slutty Vegan. I'm sorry. Yeah, my wife don't let me say slutty as much as I used to. So my wife and Pinky are very good friends, but Pinky got an injection of capital, and where she had an idea that might have took 15, 20 years to build out, the injection of capital has allowed her to open up multiple restaurants now, multiple food trucks, which puts her in multiple places so she can grow faster. So I hope that this bank, Greenwood, will be able to find the next Slutty Vegan, the next needed thing in the African-American community and help it grow, because it understands from the African-American's perspective as well. More African-Americans are eating plant-based diets than any other group of people now. So it's extremely intelligent and had a lot of foresight for Pinky to do that. And they're looking for other businesses to inject capital.
So what would it take to make Greenwood become a widely trusted, acknowledged bank like a Chase or Bank of America, Wells Fargo? What would it take?
Well, it takes Greenwood doing a good job and being dedicated toward doing a good job. It's also needed that customers should come. So if you look at the Bank of America started as the Bank of Italy, right? And it was a bank set up for the Italian immigrants that were coming here. And as it grew and as it got acquired other places, it grew into the Bank of America. It's important that we as Black people start to see ourselves as the foundation for our next generation. No matter how well or bad we've done, we are the foundation. So we have to take money more seriously. So for me, I would love to see a mass exodus of other banks and a flood to Greenwood. But if the mass exodus doesn't happen, let's focus on getting customers there, providing top-tier service, and then getting those customers to use testimonials to bring all of us there. I would say that Black people need to understand, too, that you don't have to be married to one bank account. So what I did as a child, kept my childhood bank with a Black bank. As I went to bigger banks in terms of getting into music, what I did was still keep certain savings, certain funding for my kids, get with them an account. I've always kept that at a Black bank. So I would encourage people, if you're going to keep a major bank, and I know the temptation to do that, make sure you start a secondary account with a black bank that's national like a Greenwood, as I think that your needs will be fulfilled. Even if you just save your Thanksgiving or Christmas money there, that's going to start to help that bank grow in notoriety. Then you have small business people with the ability to now get loans that they wouldn't have gotten, and you get to see overall growth in not only the black bank, but a stronger economic community where a dollar will turn longer than 1 or 2 times.
Absolutely.
Why should a white person bank black?
A white person should bank black because banking black, like banking any other bank, is safe if the bank is black. What I loved about white people and our allies is when we started black banking as a result of policemen killing people in the streets 4 or 5 years ago, and this is even prior to Greenwood, I said simply black people as a form of protest should pool their money, go in the bank. And what I was most impressed by is when we went to a black bank, white allies showed up. People that do business with the black community moved their business accounts there. People who support black music showed up. So it wasn't like we had to tell white people. White people have conscience, white people have minds, and white people want good rates and convenience. So if I'm white on one level, if I have black friends, I know this is a way of supporting their community. And on a selfish or personal level, I'd like a bank in terms that's online that has compatible rates or better rates, and I have the ability to bank anywhere from my phone. That's one of the appeals of Greenwood. So no matter what color you are, you should be banking Greenwood. But in particular, I would say black people in the Latinx community need a banking institution that understands their unique concerns. I
was going to ask, so is the bank ready for all operations? So let's say somebody wants to call right now for a auto loan, or somebody's looking to buy a house right now and they need a pre-approval or they needed approval. Is the bank fully operational for underwriting and everything? Is it ready to rock and roll?
The bank will launch officially in January. Right now, you can line up to go to www.bankgreenwood.com. You can start to pre-register for your accounts. And then come January, not only will you be able to deposit, they'll start the programs of loans too. But I don't know the full. Again, we have to bring me and the actual bankers back. I don't know the full steps to doing that, but there will be available.
All right.
You know, Mike, before you go, I want to ask you a couple more questions. I got to ask you about Brian Kemp. I saw Brian Kemp in the swag shop. And,
yes, absolutely.
You know, folks was upset about that. They was upset that you went to go meet with him at the governor's house. Why are conversations with folks like Brian Kemp important to you?
Well, let me say more people were ecstatic about it, right? Mm-hmm. So the people that show up online and complain are rarely the people that you actually see in the field working.
That's right.
There's a woman named Tafani who used to work at Equimini Records. She's a brilliant sister. She has an advertising company now. She and I are in the process now of helping the state program, well, actually a nonprofit, fill 70 seats. There have been 70 seats open for black boys in my zip code, my old zip code, and other zip codes that are focused on black boys that have been trying to get black boys in the trades program. They haven't had a celebrity or push to someone to say these slots are available. First step is we're going to get those 70 slots filled. Well, what does that mean? The average intern for a trade comes out making $71,000 to $81,000 a year. So if you look at the ability of a young man or a young woman to go to trade school for 18 months to come out making in excess of $70,000, what you have created is a stability factor that's not there now. You have a young father who all of a sudden is able to take care of his children, a young mother and father who are able to get married because they're not worried about if she will lose governmental programming, things of that nature. So that's a big deal. The next step is the governor put me on with the head of all trades in Georgia, and we are going to be creating an advertisement campaign and a campaign of some sort to push younger people into the trades. Georgia will be growing the next 20 years. We're building a huge seaport down in Miami, down in Savannah, Georgia. We're doing a huge, 8 companies have moved here. This is the 3rd most Fortune 5 companies of any state in the union. So there's going to be a lot of building, and people are going to need electricians, plumbers, floor layers, and that's going to be 20, 30 years of work. So if we're suited for that, and if we're ready for that, our community will grow. If we're not, they're going to import people there, and our community will stay deserts in terms of food, money, shelter, and things of that nature. And we simply can do better than that if we invest in the trades now. So I appreciate the governor for meeting with me. I appreciate the governor for keeping his word and coming by the shop and supporting. He said he had a great haircut. But I appreciate him most of all for what he's trying to do and making sure getting a trade is easier in the state of Georgia. And black people, people who are poor and disenfranchised, or people who are working class, get an opportunity to step up out of their class and into the next class.
What makes me mad about when people come at you over stuff like that is like, I don't care who I see Michael Render talking to. I know Michael Render. And I know whoever he's talking to, he's speaking on behalf of the black community. So does it ever get discouraging seeing how black people come at you for having those meetings?
Well, you know my wife. You know my wife is from the housing projects in Savannah. Her family is one of them Geechee families that own land in South Carolina. So she never lets me forget my job. She say, "Boy, your job is singing and dancing. Don't ever forget that." and whatever you do on your off days, you try to help. And sometimes people are going to appreciate it. Sometimes they're not. And I can understand people's misconception or perception, but that's not going to stop me from doing the work. I have been working in my community since I was 15 years old. That's 30 years of work. And I've worked at Kids for a Change, the Atlanta Fulton Commission on Children and Youth, Black Teens for Advancement. I've organized with organizations as diverse as the ADL and the NOI, depending on what we were organized around. So for me, I'm just here to help my people in any way possible. I'm going to do that with or without your critiques. I'm going to do it before and after social media. So it doesn't much matter their criticisms. My only criticism of them is I never see you criticizing next to me while I'm doing the work. So if you want to critique me, ultimately, show up at Bankhead Seafood when me and T are feeding 500 families along with Paul kids. If you want to judge me, show up on the ground when I'm campaigning for people like Kwanzaa Hall to fill John Lewis's congressional seat. You know, that's my thing. So I don't mind being critiqued. I just like to see you there sweating, doing the work, and then we can have a philosophical debate, not from the comfort of the air condition of our homes.
Yeah, I know people don't like Brian Kemp because they said he was actively engaging in voter suppression against
let me say, Georgia's had over 140 years of Democratic governors, right? The system that allowed for him to cheat, if you believe he cheated, has been in place 140 years. I would argue that system robbed Andy Young of being the first black governor. So my question becomes, do I waste the next 4 to 8 years while he's governor complaining, or do I engage in my current governor and then attempt to change that system? Systemic racism is what you're trying to fix and change, right? So systemic cheating in politics is what so I would encourage Georgians, because this is all that really matters in terms of governorship. I would encourage Georgians to engage their governor, because he is the governor. That you ain't like you're going to unseat him, to engage him with the thoughts and concerns of your community and the greater community. And then I would say, see how you can change the system that the Secretary of State does not oversee if you're really passionate about that. But if you're only mad about the last election and you ignore the fact that there's a 140-year system that allowed for this, then you're not doing the credit that you think you're doing in terms of making sure it never happens again, if you believe that's happened. Right now, I have the governor I have, and I have thoughts and missions on what I can improve my community, and that's what I'll do. And lastly, I'd like to say about that, John F. Kennedy, who's on everybody's grandmother wall, we looked at him as a progressive Democrat, was not in favor of signing the Civil Rights Bill. Lyndon Baines Johnson was a confirmed Dixiecrat.
That's right.
Right? We knew what he was. He didn't care much for you if you wasn't working for him. He is the person that signed the bill because the pressure from the African-American community made him do that.
And he was so racist that he actually called it the nigger bill. But he still passed it. He still passed it.
Hey, long as you pass the bill, you can call this shit whatever you want to. Just give me a fair opportunity to compete in the working place so I can get banked up like DJ Envy and take care of my next 2-3 generations.
There you go. That's what we all got to do.
You brought up Lyndon B. Johnson, and I keep saying that if, people say, they like to say, oh, Barack Obama was JFK. If Barack was JFK, then Joe Biden potentially has the opportunity to be a Lyndon B. Johnson. Do you see that?
Well, before we get to Biden, let's say our current president, Trump, have read his platinum package? My question to the Democrats is, why haven't you countered that? Because there were some things on that were pretty impressive. When you talk about adding 3 million jobs to the African-American community, financial support of 500,000 black businesses, and potentially $500 million.
$500 billion.
$500 billion as an injection into our economy, that's powerful. And what I'd like to say is, coming out of the street background in urban radio, many of us have known street people, right? Street people get over their prejudices real easy when it's a drought and somebody got the lowest price.
Goddamn right.
You get what I'm saying? Yep. So whatever issues you may have, let me just encourage all black people to read that platinum package, not in saying vote for Trump, but your expectations should be better. And I like the fact that you are dealing with a casino owner. I don't gamble. Yet when we go to Vegas, our room be damn near free. We get free drinks because my wife is a gambler. So the casino owner has an interest in keeping her happy. I don't know if Trump likes black people. I don't care if Trump likes black people. If his package helps my community, my question to the Democrats become, why aren't we stealing points off that package, making that package a part of your program that specifically says black people? It doesn't say disenfranchised. It doesn't say minority. It doesn't say women. It says black people.
Right.
So until we start to address why our allies are pivoting into us by Black people, we have to say to ourselves, we don't know who's going to be. 17% of men voted for Kemp in Georgia. Black men. People said, well, why is that? I remember talking to Abrams and talking to other Democrats saying, you guys making assault rifles and immigration, your plan scares the shit out of Black Southern men. Well, why did it scare the shit out of Black Southern men, Michael? Well, outside of the city is Georgia. And Black people who live in Georgia are never going to de-arm. Black men in the deep South are not going to de-arm because they know what their grandfathers and grandmothers endured. They know what their great-grandparents endured. So if there isn't a regional Democratic plan, we're going to see traditional Democrats lose, and we're going to see progressive Democrats win. So if you look at the 6th commission in DeKalb County, Mayor Ted is not just a Democrat. He's a Bernie-crat. He's a far more progressive than anybody who was running. He won. But traditional Democrats are having a hard time winning because in the South, when you start talking about things like immigration, Black people start getting afraid that skilled labor or low-paying jobs that they usually would get are going to be taken from people who are imported in. So I want to just challenge the Democratic Party nationally to do some thinking about the nuance of Southern campaigning, because I believe that if you develop a Southern strategy, you have a greater chance of winning elections as a traditional Democrat versus either Republicans winning or totally progressive people.
Yeah, I had some conversations with some Republicans about the platinum plan. And what I told them is Donald Trump's the president. He don't got to make policy commitments. If he really wants to get some shit done, he can do it.
Yeah, he could. With that said, though, I have never in my lifetime seen any president so gratuitously say, "I'll give you this for Black people." And I remember presidents back to Jimmy Carter. I have never seen a president say, "This is what I will do for Black people." And again, you're not dealing with a president or a career politician. You're dealing with a casino owner. Right. Casino owners do not have a problem figuring it out if it's going to be for their greater good. So I would just encourage Black people to be totally selfish about your vote when you go in that booth. Doesn't matter to me who, and I want to tell people that bigger than your presidential race is who is running locally. Your local elections matter far more than your national elections on a day-to-day basis. On a local level, let me give you this example. We had a Black prosecutor in Atlanta for 24 years by the name of Paul Howard. People were definitely afraid of Paul because he wasn't giving you no slack on your sentence. And one of my brothers got life in sentence, another brother got life. I say one probably deserved it, one probably didn't, you know what I mean? So he didn't play. There's a young woman who worked in his office who helped start a program that's an alternative to prison called Next Level Boys Academy. They always need donations. Y'all look them up and y'all check them out. Gary Davis. Next Level has saved many young men from long prison sentences because that people on the ground wanted to see a more progressive district attorney. She just won district attorney in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have, hopefully for the next 20, 24 years, restorative justice, an alternative to prisons. And we'll be able to keep young Black men home. We'll be able to put some of those Black men in trade schools. Those Black men will grow up to be stable husbands and fathers, which will help stabilize our community. This is the importance of local elections. So local, down that ticket, past whoever, and listen to Tesman Figaro. I want y'all to Figaro. Listen to Tesman's show. Tez gives it raw. So you watch CNN and Fox and they make it all cute. She talks to your ass like you talking about two rival gangs. So I want to support her Straight No Chaser show. It's an amazing show. And I want the average, everyday working class person to give her your ear because she breaks it down in very simple terms. And one of the things she's already told you is you might as well at this point let what happens in terms of that national election, but down that ticket. Who's going to be your prosecutor? Who's going to be your judge? Who's going to be your sheriff? Who's going to be your mayor? Who's on the school board? Those things affect you on a daily basis far more than any president. So I want you to educate yourself on the ground. In Atlanta, we were able to not only get Fonnie Willis as a DA in Fulton County, we were also able to get a Bernie-crat in one of the largest commission seats in DeKalb County by the name of Mayor Ted. He was formerly a mayor, passed marijuana decriminalization years before Atlanta, was actually more progressive than any metro area around him, and has managed to help everyone else push forward. So Ted, I'm looking forward to being in that seat 20 years or more and making radical change in DeKalb County, which is one of the largest and richest counties for Black people in the state of Georgia.
I want to thank you, too, for introducing me to Teslan Figaro, man. You know what I mean?
I love her. I love that sister.
When you connected me with Teslan, we've been hitting the ground ever since. So Straight Shot No Chaser podcast on the Black Effect iHeart Radio podcast network.
I want to congratulate you too, man. I have I love you like a brother. I love both of you guys, not only for what you do in terms of being famous in radio, but the real world application of economics in terms of envy, the real world application in terms of media and economics. You only as good as the circle of people and the thinkers that challenge you. And I want to appreciate both you black men today, because oftentimes we aren't congratulated. Both of you men have families. Both of you men are rocks and pillars in your family and organization. And I think that more of that is replicatable and possible. And we need to keep encouraging one another in that way. And that's a part of this Black Banking Challenge. The men who helped start this, Ryan Glover, Paul Judge, Andrew Young, Bo Young, his son. These men are men of character and integrity who want to bring a good and service that will not only be good for them and their company, but be good for the greater community. And I'm very happy to be in a circle of men like you guys.
No, man, we appreciate you
too, Mike.
We see all the work that you're doing, and we appreciate you, and we're glad to have a brother like you on our side.
I got one more question, though. Your focus is always on local politics, but what do you think about the presidential election? Are you participating in the process?
I have to be. I'm waiting on the Democrats to counter the platinum plan, because regardless of how I feel about you personally, if your plan helps my community, it starts to make sense. And what I've been seeing in that plan is some stuff that will radically change our interaction with government. So I encourage Black people to read it before we talk about some of the other stuff. I just don't give a damn if you like me or not. I don't give a damn if you're racist. I give a damn, can we get some business done? My grandfather would say to me, he was like, I have white friends at work, and we the best of friends. And I don't invite them to my Christmas party, and I ask they don't invite me to theirs. Because he understood that the community we lived in, and Google it, it's called the Collier Heights. It was gentrified by Black people, for Black people, and it depended on us. And that way, because that community was strong, that community was able to help get people like Mayor Andrew Young elected. That community has been the center of Black economics. As that community turns into a renter versus ownership community, I would like to see Black people repopulate that community, secure the West Side, and make sure you always have an economic and political enclave to lean to. So for me, on a very local level, nationally, whoever I feel may help me the best locally is the person that's going to get my vote. And I want to encourage Black people, when you go in that booth, have no guilt about whoever you vote about. Vote for your gut and who you think is going to best help you and your community on an individual basis, and then take that vigor out of the voting booth and call your local politicians accountable for what they promise they're going to do, because no politics matters like local politics. The soap opera of who wins presidency is equivalent to the Washington football team versus the Dallas Cowboys. It's a hype team. It's a hype game. We're all going to watch it, but that ain't the Super Bowl. We're trying to win the Super Bowl. So let's endure through the end. On a very local level, let's call our people accountable, hold them accountable for what their promises are. And on a national level, whose national policy is going to affect me best locally? I don't give a damn who likes me or not.
Yeah, nobody cares about the trash Cowboys, by the way.
Man,
anyway.
Shut up. No, Mike is all business, man. Mike is all business. But, Mike, I seen you curve a politician before now. That shit was so cold. Listen.
What you talking about,
when
man?
We was at the Tyler Perry grand opening, and there was a certain former president on the red carpet. Mike said, I ain't talking to that motherfucker. He locked too many Black people up.
Absolutely, I do not. We are not. No, we won't.
Well, Mike,
when I talked to Senator Harris, and I appreciate her conversation. She had a bunch of Black men, yourself included, and she honestly took the advice back to the party. But one of the things I told her, I said, to be very honest with you, I think it's as simple in terms of Black men and the children of men who serve inappropriate amounts of time in prison for nonviolent drug offenses. I think that it do Biden good to look at a camera and say, I apologize.
That's right.
I was mistaken. There's nothing like, Southerners are very forgiving people. Once you admit your fuck up,
that's right.
It's important that you just say, I fucked up. And Southern men deserve that. All men across the nation who got hit with those exorbitant jail sentences. But in particular, if you want to take the South, I just encourage the Democrats to make amends with men. Like right now, I saw Roland Martin put out a tweet in the last couple of days that Torian Walker co-signed, saying, that the Democrats had better start talking to Black men. We've been telling Democrats that for 6 years.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Black women give 96 to 98% of their vote. Black men give 90 to 94% of their vote. So the fact that you ignore that is a disrespect and insult within itself. So I would encourage people. I'd encourage people on the Democratic side, who are many of my friends and family, to start to create an agenda that deals with educating Black boys, and what I believe in particular should be trades, so you will have young men that are fit to marry, that are fit to take your daughters and build their first, second, third generation of wealth. And if we're not doing that as a Democratic Party, I say we, because in Georgia, I'm still registered as a Democrat. If we are not doing that, we're doing our party a disservice. We're doing the community that we lean on for over 90% of their votes a disservice. And ultimately, we're doing the state a disservice.
Absolutely.
Mike, we love you, brother. Give him the website for Greenwood.
Man, www.bankgreenwood.com. Make sure you guys hit it up.
I was going to say, you ain't had to do us like that with all those sneakers you got in the background, Mike. You ain't had to do us like that.
No, listen. You ain't
had to do us like that.
I want to, because I get criticized sometimes. I want to tell people I had to do it in this room because this is where the stand was and it was time to go on. But people often talk shit about owning sneakers, but I want to tell people as I'm getting my room together, I have been a sneakerhead and trader since I was a kid. So I don't just get up and go spend thousands of dollars on sneakers. I made 4 trades to get to these versions. So I'm going to say that because I want to shout out my nephew who's down in Alabama at a black school. He buys, sells, swaps sneakers. So he's been able to build thousands of dollars because he's innovative. Stop telling our children what they can't do and what's a waste of time.
Yeah.
You know, let's grow entrepreneurs. So if your child wants a pair of sneakers, make sure that you have some investment. I told my kids, if you ever want to invest in sneakers, I'll front you with your first $300 to $500, get you 1 or 2 pair, flip a pair. So most of this collection is not just bought, it's traded for, some are purchases, some are other things. So sneaker collecting is my hobby, muscle cars and toy cars. So I'm often in that. So, you know, whether people criticize or not, it's on them. But I got 2 pair of dunks.
I was saying, I see them 2 Ben & Jerry's, man. I see 2 Ben & Jerry's up there, man.
I got 2 Ben & Jerry's, man. So, and that's because I'm out there hustling. I'm out there like any other trader. So, you know, when you see me, just know that my wife, we could afford $1 million house. We bought a $500,000 house. My wife and I don't buy new cars. We only buy pre-owned cars. Mm-hmm. We do things like our grandparents so that we live a life that we want. I still got the cool stuff I want. But with that said, I don't mind waiting a little longer. I wanted a Dodge Demon the day they dropped. My wife made me take that $250,000 versus buying a car, accessories, and buying a part. That has profited us more in the past 4 years than any car would have. So I appreciate marrying a woman who's out the housing projects and Grand Liquor House. She understands money a lot better than I do.
There you go. Well, thank you, brother. We appreciate you. Killer Mike.
Love you, King.
It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Love and respect.